What is up, wrestling fans? It is that time of the week for the FLZ Wrestling Team to talk all things pro wrestling and call it right down the middle. That's right, it's time for this week's edition of 607 TWS, the wrestling show, powered by FanLaneZone.com. Of course, I am your host. My name is Rich. Joining me in the co-pilot's chair, as she does each and every week, she is the hunter of the Pokemans, because she's got to catch them all. She is the guru of cosplay, but most importantly to this show, she is a pro grappling connoisseur. She is the first lady of Fanlight Zone. Miss Sammy, how are you this week?
I think I am the same as everyone else in the northeastern part of the states. I am warm. I'm very warm. So everyone out there living in this part of the country, stay cool, stay indoors. Yeah. How are you doing?
I am melting. So if you see me with a sweat towel during this show, don't judge me. It is really like, well, right now, I just took a peek. Right now, it's still, mind you, it is 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And where I live, it is still 89 degrees. The sun is down and it is still 89 degrees. To put it in perspective, today, it got up to 110 degrees where I live. So to say that I am melting is an understatement. To say that I am in my home studio where the air conditioning is not on because obviously too much noise. There is a fan, so if you hear some buzzing, once again, don't be judging. But we are going to bring you an action-packed show because we have a lot to talk about this week. Because last week we had a lot to cover in the pre-shows and previewing 4 major shows, and this week we have to recap 4 major shows. So it's like, you know, the yin and the yang of the last 2 weeks. And so we do have quite a jam-packed show, so I'm not going to waste a lot of time here in the beginning as we have a lot to cover and talk about. But I do need to get some business out of the way, so I implore you to head on over to FanLightZone.com. Check out some of the awesome comic book reviews up there, because nobody, and I mean nobody, does New Comic Book Day like FanLightZone.com. Of course, also while you're at FanLightZone.com, make sure you go ahead and look up all the links for all the social medias and follow us there. And most importantly, if you are watching us on Twitch or X, thank you. Make sure you're following us on X and Twitch, because that's where we're also live when we do the wrestling show. But it is imperative that you go over to the YouTube channel, because regular videos, and you never know, other wrestling content down the road will only be up on YouTube. So you want to make sure you get over there after the show is over, smash that subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications so you know whenever we go live or whenever a new video gets put up. And of course, hit that thumbs up to help us conquer the algorithm and bring you more stuff from the Fanlight Zone YouTube channel and beyond. So there you go. We have talked about the power up. Now let's get into this wrestling, because let's be honest, we have a lot to talk about. And I want to start off by saying this goes, and I'm going to say it a bunch of times, but chat, super chat, whatever you want. Throw in your thoughts, throw in your picks, throw in what you thought about the events. But we are going to just hit the round running. And the first show that was up this past weekend, we're going to go in chronological order, Miss Sammy, just like we did for the pre-show. So the first show that was up this weekend was from beautiful, progressive Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Night of Champions from World Wrestling Entertainment. Yeah, it was a show. It was a happening. I'm just going to throw it out there. As we're going to be talking about Night of Champions here, it's going to go through the whole process. I am going to run down the card. I'm going to give you the winners, times, all that happy jazz. And at the end, we're just going to pick through the card and talk. Since we have 4 major cards and a lot of wrestling, mind you, I do believe this is the least amount of matches, because there were 6 matches on Night of Champions. Yeah, there was 12 matches in total on All Elite Wrestling / New Japan Pro Wrestling / CMLL / Stardom's Forbidden Door. I do believe TNA Wrestling was right around 8 or so, which we'll get to in a second. And NXT was right around 6 or 7 as well. So if you add them all up, there was probably right around 30 matches between these shows, give or take. I did not add them up. I know, bad host, but I've been dealing with being hot. I know. But so in the interest of us giving and shining light on the positives, and yes, we will talk some negatives, but on the interest of like talking about the things that need to be talked about, we're not going to, I hate to use the word waste the time, but we're not going to dive deep into every match, because some matches, let's be honest, they weren't bad. They were good, but they don't need to be talked about much past, who won and maybe a quick blurb about it. Meaning we're going to talk about things that have impact down the road, things that we like, things that we didn't like. So let's start off. Let's run down the card for Night of Champions. Of course, let's start off with the opening contest. There was the finals of the men's King of the Ring tournament to decide who was not only going to be this year's King of the Ring, but also who would go on to SummerSlam. That's what we were told originally. We'll get to that at the end. To challenge for a world championship of their choosing. This match got 7 minutes and 56 seconds. At the end of the day, the ruler, Obafemi, would defeat main event Jey Uso. Next up, we got the finals of the Queen of the Ring tournament. Of course, this one has not been retroactively. It is earned a world championship match at SummerSlam. This match got 14 minutes and 56 seconds. And at the end of the day, Io Sky is your 2026 Queen of the Ring, as she defeated the WWE Women's Champion, Liv Morgan, and then called her shot instantly and said, I will see you at SummerSlam. So we will be getting Io Sky versus Liv Morgan for the WWE Women's Championship at SummerSlam. Next, we had the Steel Cage Extravaganza that got 19 minutes and 4 seconds, where Seth freaking Rollins would defeat Braun Breaker. Then we moved on to the U.S. Championship matches, as the men's U.S. Championship match would be up next. Your champion, Trick Williams, with Little Yachty in his corner, which, by the way, I will say it now, Little Yachty becoming one of my favorite managers in all of pro wrestling, taking on Absolute Ricky Saints. This match got 10 minutes and 43 seconds at the end of the day, and still your WWE Men's United States Champion, Trick Williams. Then we had the Women's WWE United States Championship match, where your champion, it's Tiffy time, Tiffany Stratton, taking on the Storm, Jade Cargill. This match got 7 minutes and 40 seconds, and at the end of the day, your winner, and still the WWE Women's United States Champion, Tiffany Stratton. And in the main event of the evening, for the undisputed WWE Championship in a triple threat match, your champion, the American Nightmare, QB1, Cody Rhodes, taking on the Ring General Gunther. And of course, the lovable loser up to this point, Sami Zayn. This match got 18 minutes, 38 seconds. And at the end of the day, your winner and your new undisputed WWE champion, Sami Zayn. So I think we should start there. Let's start there, Sammy, because this is the biggest part of, I think, this show. First and foremost, we had talked about this previously. We thought that Sami Zayn should probably have won the first time in Saudi Arabia. Made sense. The first time he got, which would be Royal Rumble. Good pop. They did do the flip-flop of the belt with Drew McIntyre, so it wasn't like they were against that, right? And that was the argument why you wouldn't have done it. So here we are, Night of Champions, back in Saudi, and we get the reaction we thought we'd get. Sami Zayn's over like Rover. Crowd solidly behind Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn picks up the win, becomes your undisputed champion. And the match was good, but I don't think that the match is where it's at. Far too many times I've sat in this chair, Sammy, and I've said things like, and I've gotten crap for it. I've said things like, hey, the fans want what they want till they get it. Hey, fans are fickle. Hey, when you or everybody else, why doesn't X, Y, and Z get the belt? Why doesn't so-and-so get the belt? And I'm like, well, because as soon as they do, the fans are going to turn. And guess what happened? Sami Zayn becomes champion, and oh boy, the backlash on the internet started instantaneously. People who before were all about Sami Zayn getting a win instantly were like, where's this company going? Why is Sami Zayn champion? How is he championship material? I even saw people go as far, and I has put up a picture of Hulk Hogan and Sami Zayn next to it, and this company gave us both. WWE's lost its way, and I'm just like, I don't know if I would have chose that. So my thoughts here before I pass it to you is, yes, I am happy that Sami Zayn became the WWE Undisputed Champion for a couple reasons. A, Sami Zayn has been a workhorse the entire time he's been in WWE. If for no other reason, he deserves at least the accolade. Secondly, I think that this freshens some things up, whether it's a long-term championship run or not, it freshens some things up. Listen, it was becoming stale because, once again, I have said it once, I've said it a million times, and so haven't you. Cody Rhodes as champion, not because of himself, but because of booking, is not in a good position. So now, guess what? We get to go back to Cody being the hunter. Him hunting for titles is what people like to see, and it's what WWE can actually book, which is kind of sad. And lastly, it does get that one moment where you look at it and all of Dusty's kids from NXT have now been a world champion on the main roster. So he has completed the loop, if you will. So I feel like on those aspects, it's worth the title and also the pop in Saudi Arabia. I mean, you can't take anything away from that. Sammy, what's your thoughts on Sammy, your new undisputed champion, and also the internet losing its collective? You know what? We'll say it. We're after 10 minutes in. Shit.
So some of the internet discourse, they do have a point. There have been other points in Sami Zayn's, career on the main roster where it felt more like the time to put the belt on him. And beyond just the fact that he is someone who is incredibly over with that audience, it didn't really feel like the best opportunity from the story they've been telling to put the belt on Sami Zayn. So I kind of see that argument of where it's like, well, you're just doing it to pop a crowd and to get that big reaction. I'm like, I get that, but that's okay. That's going to be on highlight reels for the next 15 years, up there with Mankind beating The Rock on Monday Night Raw on the famous that'll put some butts in the seats night. Like those things matter. That does matter. That is an important thing, and it's a great accomplishment for Sami Zayn. It's a huge compliment to Sami Zayn, but that's the business side of things. Now you have to focus on the storyline side of things, where we have continuously said that WWE is bankrupt. And I can totally see why this kind of feels like desperation, where it's like, we don't know what to do, and everyone's complaining, so we'll just put together Sami Zayn because, like, that's just new, it's different, and that's what everyone's complaining about. I get that argument, too. It does feel like a situation where this doesn't feel very long-term thought out, long-term booked. And we had, just last week, Paul Heyman on Chris Van Vliet talking about WWE. I sit in the meetings where we do all the long-term booking. I'm thinking about who's winning WrestleMania, not next year, the year after. And we heard all that. And this doesn't really seem to fit that narrative. Were people really saying 6 months ago, a year ago, we're going to have Sami Zayn win in Saudi Arabia? It just doesn't feel that. So I understand a lot of the discourse. At the end of the day, Sami Zayn is an amazing person and an amazing wrestler and worthy of a title run. And it is fresh. It is different. He's going to be a first-time champion, and we'll see where this goes tomorrow on SmackDown and such. But it does. I do understand the criticism, and some of it has been very valid. And I think a lot of that just has to go into the overall discussion that WWE has not been strong creatively for about 2 years now.
I would like to say this with all due respect to one Paul Heyman, who I think is a legend, and I think has one of the most legendary minds in all of pro wrestling. So it's no disrespect. But I would love to say, why are there any long-term meetings? Because you guys can't even get to the long term. You can't keep the audience engaged for the short term. So how about we stop focusing on who's not winning, not this year's WrestleMania, but next year's WrestleMania? And let's start focusing on the road ahead. Let's start focusing on getting asses back in the seats again. Because I'm going to be a peek behind the curtain. I didn't bring this up because we don't talk about tickets, but SmackDown is in Albany, New York, or was in Albany, New York, I should say. And when it was in Albany, New York, because I've gone to that venue to see wrestling before, whether it was WWE or AEW, because I've seen both there, I get things from the MVP Arena. And I got a message from the MVP Arena about buy one, get one tickets for SmackDown. Oh, that wasn't happening 2 years ago. That wasn't even happening a year ago. So now you're telling me in a big market like Albany, New York, which is a big market, and it's a big wrestling town, you can't get a sellout without doing buy one, get one tickets. So don't tell me everything is okay. It's like chicken, you know what, you're Chicken Little, then the sky is falling. It might not be crashing to the ground yet, like we've said before, but that's the tricky part. It's almost like the frog in the hot water. You put the frog in the pan and you turn it up slowly so the frog doesn't jump out, right? And I feel like that's what's happening in WWE creatively right now, is that the frog is in the pan and the heat is getting slow turned up. And by the heat, I mean the outside things of having great shows from other promotions, which we'll talk about, as well as the fact of them not getting out of their own ways. And they're sitting in there. They're the frog. They're sitting in there thinking everything's great. They're thinking it's a jacuzzi. They're thinking we're good. And you're getting cooked. And so, I think that's where this thing like Sami Zayn, a shock to the system, may actually help the system.
Yes.
In my opinion. Sorry.
So I do encourage everyone to go listen to that episode. I know we're putting over another podcast. Here we are. We're a podcast.
Yeah, sure. We like Chris Van Vliet.
He's an amazing interviewer, and Paul Heyman is an amazing person to interview. And the way he talks about wrestling, the way he talks about his life and everything, he's an amazing storyteller. And that's one of the great things about Paul Heyman, the wrestling character, and Paul Heyman, the human being. Just an amazing storyteller. But my take on that whole portion of the interview was Paul Heyman is selling here. He is really trying to sell this idea. And from Paul Heyman's perspective of someone in the position that he is in within wrestling, it makes a lot of sense, but I personally felt he's pushing this a little harder than I think even he wants to. And that, again, that's my personal opinion on it. Because I'm like, what you're talking about sounds all wonderful, but we're not seeing that. Sorry, Paul.
Yeah, but for the people out there thinking that the sky is falling and panicking, it is a little bit. And here's the problem. I don't think this was a desperation move, because if you were going to do a desperation move, you wouldn't pick Sami Zayn. Nothing against Sami Zayn. But if you were doing something for desperation reasons, you would have maybe gone with either Gunther, or you would have gone with another hot hand. You know what I mean? Yes. I.e., Obafemi ahead of time, which we'll talk about. Which we'll talk about in a minute. Trick Willie. Like somebody who's going to invigorate the whole universe. So that's what I would have done if you were in a desperate position. This seems just kind of like I said. It seems like, hey, they got the message. They should have done it at the Royal Rumble, because the time was better there. And like you pointed out, the time has been better other times. So it is kind of a make do. It's kind of like Scorsese not winning the Oscar for Best Picture until The Departed, when we know that, nothing against The Departed, great movie, but is it better than Goodfellas? Is it better than Raging Bull? Is it better than, Casino? And the list goes on. The man has made amazing movies, and it took him all the way to The Departed to win. So yeah, it was a make-up Oscar, probably. Not that The Departed was bad, but it was. But it doesn't matter in the end of time. The fact that we get to say Martin Scorsese has won an Oscar for Best Picture is all that matters. The fact that Sami Zayn can say that he was the undisputed champion, I think at the end of the day is all that matters. And if they were smart, you could get some new, fresh stuff like we were talking about off of this to push in. So let the internet push back. Who cares? If this leads to something exciting, that's great. Will it? Probably not. But because if you think about Sami Zayn over the past couple of months, he just came off a losing feud, and now he's the world champion. So that could be kind of interesting. Your U.S. champion's the one that beat him. We've seen that way in the past, where you've had like your Intercontinental champion going after your heavyweight champion. That's kind of interesting, and it's bringing something back from the old into the new if you wanted to go that route. So there is a huge opportunity here, because you do now have someone fresh at the top of the card on SmackDown. So, I mean, there's been a lot of rumors about CM Punk moving over to SmackDown because Raw is a little heavier now. A CM Punk Sami Zayn feud, that's kind of interesting. That's something different. There is opportunity here, and I hope WWE takes advantage of it. And I think if it's a transitional championship thing, then the glaring signs of you did it to pop a crowd become a little more obvious. And that's not right to Sami Zayn at all, or the crowd. Here's the thing. Sometimes doing it to pop a crowd is great. It's better than not popping a crowd at all. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, the game has to be played where we need to pop a crowd once in a while. You know what I mean? You can make the argument on the other channel, which we'll talk about later, which I'm completely fine with some of the things that happened there to move us into where we're headed for their biggest show of the year. And that's where I'm concerned here, because let's switch gears. Real quick, I'm going to say the cage match and both the U.S. title matches were all fine. I enjoyed all of them. Nothing really to write home to, but the only thing I would point out is, as I said in the earlier, Little Yachty's becoming one of my favorite managers in wrestling. Looks like he's there for the long haul, and I'm loving every minute of Little Yachty. So keep bringing Little Yachty back because I enjoy his management style. It's great.
It reminds me a lot of Prince Nana and Swerve. Because Swerve doesn't need a manager, Trick doesn't need a manager, but it just adds a little something more, and it's not an overexposed thing right now, so it's working. So keep doing it. Of course, schedule allows for it.
So now let's talk about the elephant in the room, but like in both ways. Let's start with the women's Queen of the Ring. We're told coming into this, the winner of the Queen and the Queen and King of the Ring are going to be the #1 contenders for the world title of their choosing at SummerSlam, the second biggest show of the year, the summer WrestleMania, whatever the hell you want to call it, right? So that's what we're told all the way in going into it. So we get to this. We have a great listen. I like both the matches. We're going to talk about it. Women's match gets a little more time, which is fine. Io and Liv do an amazing job, like we thought they would, and Io Sky comes out your victor. I'm not even mad that Io Sky's challenging Liv Morgan at SummerSlam. Okay, cool. We're going to run it back. We're going to get another great match between Io and Liv. Fine, cool. Once again, I'm not trying to downplay it. I thought it was all good. But then you get to the men's match, which opened the show. You have, we assumed that Jey Uso would win so that he could then go on to fight for the world title, the undisputed title, that is, at SummerSlam. Granted, now that Sami Zayn is champion, even more of a story there, right? We talked about it on the pre-show, in the preview.
All three of them, right? All three of them would have made for an interesting story. It's already been told. It's another chapter in it. So
Right. And once again, I get it. The Yeet movement isn't for everybody. Me and you have been critical. However, logically makes sense. So you know what? We don't do that. We go right after, we go to the ruler. So my first judgment was watching this in real time. I'm talking about real time. Real time, Oba wins. I'm like, oh, cool. Great. They are moving on with Oba. Kind of sets up the plans for SummerSlam that we thought going forward we're going to be there. Going, that's kind of throws a wrench into them. However, this opens up finally Oba versus Roman. Maybe the company's like, hey, we need to take advantage and strike while the iron's hot. Cool. So my criticism then was like, I wish if that was the case that they would have leaned more on Roman Reigns and like pressing it onto Jey Uso, like you need to get this done, not just because he wanted him to go to the other show and win the belt, but because he wanted to keep Oba away from him longer, right? That would make sense. And I'm like, oh man, they missed an opportunity there, but no fret. So then we roll into Monday Night Raw. And in the biggest what the hell are you talking about moment since Cody Rhodes was going to step aside and not take his shot for the world title after winning the Royal Rumble. Oba Femi says, I got this guaranteed shot at SummerSlam so I could take on either Sami Zayn, I could take on Roman Reigns, I could become a world champion, but I ain't going to do it. I'm going to keep that in my back pocket so I can challenge Brock Lesnar. And I went, what? So let me get this straight, Sammy. Before I pass this to you and anybody who wants to chime in here. So we're in a company that right now, creative bankruptcy is the name. And there's questions like when you're questioning Sami Zayn being champion and questioning legitimacies of titles, what does it say when the winner of the King of the Ring, instead of taking a shot at a world championship, instead says, nah, I don't want that belt. I want to fight Brock Lesnar. What does that mean about the title? And mind you, a belt that Roman Reigns is holding or a belt that Sami Zayn is holding, but Roman in particular because of Raw. That means you've just treated Roman Reigns by proxy, and but tell me if I'm going too far, because perception is reality in wrestling. You've just treated Roman Reigns as a less than to Brock Lesnar, and you have treated the WWE World Championship as a less than to getting revenge on Brock Lesnar. Not even talking about the Undisputed. Who cares? Let's put that to the side. what in the hell are they thinking in that career? Once again, if we're talking long term, what the hell is the thoughts there?
So obviously the easy route was very simple. Brock could have beat him up, and he could have said, "I'm challenging you to this," and Oba could have said, "I'm taking your career. You have to retire." And it's like, okay, but then you got to give me something. Then it's like, all right, then you could be number one contender. You will take my number one contendership. And then there's your match for SummerSlam. So then Brock wins, and then he's automatically the number one contender for a title match at Survivor Series. Long-term booking. We like long-term booking. And Survivor Series, last big pay-per-view of the year, which has been kind of lackluster. Okay. Or he retires him. Okay. Yeah, it was there. No, apparently it's just Seth Rollins is now the number one contender getting a title match because reasons. Thank you for that one, Ken. You hyped it up for weeks, and now it just means nothing. It means nothing. And this is a WWE philosophy that we've seen over the years. WWE thinks it's more valuable to have Obafemi in the ring with Brock Lesnar 3 times. Oh, he's gotten the rub from Obafemi 3 times. And it's like, well, he didn't win against... wins and losses don't matter. He's got the rub because he appeared in the ring with Obafemi and Brock Lesnar 3 times. And that's a huge deal. And it's like, it would have been a huge deal like 10 years ago. It's not as big of a deal now. It'd be a big deal if he was in the ring with Roman Reigns. That would mean something. That would mean something huge. Is it important for him to be in the ring with Brock Lesnar? It certainly was for WrestleMania. It hasn't been since. And has this been kind of a fun little interesting story? Sure. But you should have went the obvious route. You should have just screwed him out of the King of the Ring tournament. What, Brock couldn't get on the flight over to Saudi Arabia? Is this CM Punk all over again? Tell Brock to work the house shows? He couldn't get a flight over there? Come on. Come on.
I was perplexed and puzzled.
Sometimes the obvious path, the easiest path, is the best path. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated. Yeah.
I was overly perplexed and puzzled. I was just like, this makes no sense. You're now lessening not only the world championship, you're lessening Roman Reigns. Well, literally, Obafemi said, hey, I'm going to put this in my back pocket. And like you said, you could have corrected it. You could have said, hey, listen, I've had some time to think. Everything that happened to me, you know what? I'll tell you what, Brock Lesnar, I want you at SummerSlam. And I know that you're not going to, just come out. And you know what? I want something on the line from you. I want to end your career. You teased it at WrestleMania. Now I want it. And then Paul Heyman could have came out and said, oh, no, this doesn't work like that, Oba. It doesn't work like that. And he goes, okay, well, you know what? Brock can't get a shot at the world title as long as Roman Reigns is champion, unless he wins something where you can't deny the shot. So how about the fact that I won the King of the Ring means I have a guaranteed shot, and I will put that guaranteed shot on the line against Brock Lesnar in his career. And all of a sudden, now you have
something interesting.
Now you have it. Instead of it's just like, nope, we're just going to take the earned shot that I had. We're going to put it in my back pocket for no reason, a la Cody Rhodes handing his shot to The Rock, which we all know how that worked out. Thankfully, they switched back on it. And here we are. Here we are talking about, now Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns, which will be a fine match. It's probably going to be your SummerSlam main event. Meanwhile, Brock and Oba are going to go at it again, where you could have just set it up differently, and you could have set up a Jey Uso versus Sami Zayn match in the King of the Ring with the King of the Ring final, and you still could have kept the promise. So to me, it's just perplexing, it's puzzling, and yeah.
Well, and that's just the men's side of things. The women's side isn't very clean either. What's the deal with Rhea Ripley?
Well, as far as we know, she's injured. This is the severity of the injury,
belt, right? Like she just gets to keep the belt. Like the whole story.
Well, I think they're
Io and Rhea, which I understand that's fantasy booking from the fans or whatever. But like, is she hurt? Does she have to relinquish the title? Also, don't even go back to Liv. She didn't do anything for half the year with the belt. This is like the first feud that she's been in now for her belt. So like,
but to the defense of that, this is buying time because they obviously don't care about how long you have to go in between title defenses. This is buying time to figure out how long Rhea is going to be on the shelf. And it's a distraction, which kudos to them. It's probably the smartest piece of business they've done in a while. Like if you really want to know the truth.
I think the smartest bit of business they've done in a while is it appears Paul Heyman and the Vision are done with the comments we received on Monday night, and I hope so. Please, that group was dead on arrival at this point.
I want that too, but like I said, I still think that because taking the belt off of Rhea, where do you go? Where do you go? Like you'd have to move. I think what their thing is, you'll have to move somebody over to SmackDown to make it worthwhile to take the belt. Because, I mean, Gus, you have Tiffany Stratton, you have Charlotte Flair, but right now they've treated Charlotte Flair like an afterthought, and Tiffany Stratton's your current U.S. champion. And you could revert back to Jade Cargill, but it didn't work out so well the first time, even though she's had a couple good matches. But do you revert back? So the answer would be no. So then you have to go, who do I make champion?
Right. You could bring in a Becky Lynch. That would be your
right.
That'd be your break glass in case of emergency here, or you could try and get AJ Lee to come back, which she's still employed.
I would say Bayley, but then you have the teases for Mercedes Moné about Bayley's contract being up. I don't know how true that is, and making a dream match in AEW between her and Bayley. Once again, I think it's just her getting the internet talking, but who knows in this day and age of contracts and what's going on, or how happy Bayley possibly is or isn't with World Wrestling Entertainment and how she's being used. Quite frankly, the bosses aren't really making themselves liked to anybody. Just throwing it out there.
Night of Champions, pass or fail. Not even just thumbs up, thumbs down.
You know what? If I'm doing just thumbs up, thumbs down, I'm going to say thumbs up. It was entertaining enough for me. It wasn't like I'm not saying it was a 5-star show because it wasn't, but it was a solid B. It's the wrestling action was fine. Other than because all of the things I had a problem with happened after the fact. Because we didn't know about Oba until Monday. So from Saturday to Monday, it looks like, oh shit, we're getting Oba Femi versus Roman Reigns at SummerSlam, right? And then the Sami Zayn stuff, it was I had nothing against him winning, but the internet backlash happened instantaneous. But after it wasn't the actual decision. But I thought in the moment in the match, it was fine. And I thought it went over well. So you can't punish it for that decision. Like I said, it's a solid B show. Not anything to write home about, but solid B.
I say it's a thumbs up, and I will give them a little bit of credit. I think the show actually over-delivered. I'm not saying it's a slam dunk home run, greatest show they've done this year, but I think going into it, there was kind of all right, here's another WWE pay-per-view, whatever, blah, blah. But I think this one actually over-delivered a bit, and this is worthwhile to go back. The main event was pretty solid, and some of the other matches were okay. I think it's not a huge overperformer, but for WWE standards, overperforming, that's a big win.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's move on because Sunday was the big day. We had 3 wrestling events on Sunday, including 2 that overlapped. Let's start with the first one up that did not overlap, and of course, that would be TNA Wrestling's Slammiversary 2026 from Boston, Massachusetts. This was an interesting show. Yes. It's a lot of ways predictable, but an interesting show. Once again, chat, drop in if you want to throw anything in. That's perfectly great. If not, it's fine. We're going to run down the card. I'm going to give you the card rundown, and then we're going to just talk about around the card. Let's start off. There was 2 pre-show matches. The first one saw Elena Black defeating Indy Hartwell and Maricide in 5 minutes. And the other pre-show match saw Ricky Sosa defeating Eric Young in 6 minutes. We would open the show in true fashion of TNA, which was great, with the Ultimate X match for the X Division Championship. Your champion, Cedric Alexander, taking on Fabian Aichner, Frankie Kazarian, Casey Navarro, Leon Slater, Mr. Excellence, and of course, the legendary Amazing Red. This match, we get 10 minutes and 30 seconds at the end of the day, retrieving the X Division Championship and still the TNA X Division Champion, Cedric Alexander. Next up, we had a singles match where we kind of crapped out at, let's be honest, in the preview, where Elijah would defeat AJ Francis in 9 minutes and 10 seconds. I'm not even going to go into what the stipulation was because it was not great. Then next up, we had the tag team match in the Knockouts division for the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Championships. Your tag team champions, the Elegance brand, Heather and M by Elegance, taking on Demon X Bunny, Rosemary and Allie. And our national nightmare is over because after 9 minutes and 40 seconds, your winners and the new TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Champions, Demon X, Bunny, Rosemary, and Allie have regained those championships. Well, technically got them for the, I think it's the second time they've had those belts. Next up, we had a to be determined, remember, open challenge from Mustafa Ali for the TNA International Championship. It ended up being a triple threat match. As Mustafa Ali, your actually for good reasons in this case, Mustafa Ali, your international champion, taking on Rich Swann, and then we didn't have this on the bingo cards. The debut of Uhaa Nation, formerly Apollo Crews, and formerly to that Uhaa Nation, is now in TNA Wrestling. This match got 10 minutes at the end of the day, and your winner, and still the TNA International Champion, Mustafa Ali. Right decision, by the way, not to hot shot the belt on Uhaa Nation, because that was too predictable, but I'm glad they did it. I'll talk about that in a sec. We're not going to talk too much on the match, so that's why I'll say it there. Next up, we had a no surrender match where after 13 minutes and 10 seconds, Moose would defeat diehard Eddie Edwards, and very good decision there. And I did dig this match quite a bit. Then we had the singles match for the TNA Knockouts World Championship. Your champion, Li Ying Lee, taking on Zaya Brookside. This match was actually really good. And after 11 minutes and 50 seconds, your winner and the new TNA Knockouts World Champion, Zaya Brookside. Then we had the four-way ladder match for the TNA World Tag Team Championships, where your tag team champions, The System, Brian Myers and Bear Bronson, would defend against The Righteous, Vincent and Dutch, The Great Hands, Jason Hotch and John Schuyler, and last but not least, the Broken Hardys, Broken Matt and Brother Nero. This match got 17 minutes and 30 seconds, and at the end of the day, your winners and the new TNA World Tag Team Champions, the Broken Hardys. And last but certainly not least, in the main event of the evening for the TNA World Championship, your champion, Mike Santana, defending the title against, in his Call Your Shot Championship match, the most wanted man, Nick Nemeth. This match got 15 minutes, and at the end of the day, your winner and the new TNA World Champion, the most wanted man, Nick Nemeth. Let's start there. Like we did before. Might as well start with the main event, right? Nick Nemeth is your world champion, to no surprise. And listen, the match was good, but let's be honest. A lot of blood from Mike Santana. Left it all in the ring, if you could say. But speaking of leaving it all in the ring, is that his last match in TNA Wrestling, Miss Sammy?
Well, we talked about this a lot. What else can you do there? Like, literally, what else can you do there? You have done it all there. So what are you going to go back to? To feud with Nick Nemeth? I'm not being dismissive of Nick Nemeth. Nick Nemeth is still a very strong wrestler, still a strong character in such a wrestling. But like, there's nothing else for you to do there. It is time, logically, it's time to leave the territory. And now that we have WWE, NXT, TNA, AEW, and New Japan, and several indies that are very strong, it's time to leave the territory.
Well, I mean, we all know he's going WWE.
Yeah, but logically, it is time. It just
right. No, I agree.
It happens to be at the time of the end of his contract, but like there is nothing else for him to do there anyway. Even if he was signed for another year, it's like you've done everything you needed to do there. It's time to move on.
Agreed. I did have a head scratch. I mean, I'm happy Zaya Brookside became champion. Nothing against Li Ying Lee because she was a great champion. But I mean, we talked about it before. It was a should or get off the pot moment, and TNA did what WWE can't, and they pulled the trigger. And I'm happy about it. Good for them. The troubling parts, though, I think, was that tag match. We're going back to the Broken Hardys again. I mean, this would have been a great time to bring up the Great Hands or the Righteous. I mean, I'm glad that I shouldn't say glad the belts came off the system. I think that the belts should have came off of them, but I think you could have elevated another team and strengthened the tag team division. Nothing against the Broken Hardys and their legendary run, but once again, legendary run because they're on the opposite side of it.
I'm actually okay with this one. And I'll get into it in a minute. I want you to wrap up your rest of your thoughts on the show overall. But I'm actually okay with this one. It makes sense.
Go ahead. We can talk about it here because there's not much left on the show.
Yeah. So if you look at this show and the news surrounding TNA going into the show, obviously there's a lot of change happening within TNA, and there was a lot of change on this show. We saw multiple new champions crowned, and obviously their top star is more than likely out the door. So in an era of change, this is another TNA rebirth, right? Like it just continues to rebirth itself. So here we are again. I get moving the belts back to the Hardys because you are moving the belts to a lot of new places under new leadership. I know that the leadership structure hasn't changed, but there's going to be new voices and new people pitching ideas and in charge of things in the back. So moving one area to a safe place for a period of time, that does make sense to me, that the Hardys are a known commodity. And while I feel like they have definitely done more than enough putting teams over in TNA, why not one more? It's a safe place to go. And it puts it in a place where you don't really have to worry about it for a little while. And you can worry about some of these other things that are a little bit higher on the burner of problems at TNA.
I can see your point there, but I would make the same argument says that, hey, you're starting fresh. Let's start fresh across the board.
I don't know if they can handle that much fresh at once.
I mean, you still have a tried and true champion in Nick Nemeth as the world champion. You still have Mustafa Ali as the international champion. So it's not like you have Cedric Alexander as the X Division champion. So you have really good workers who are all young, but really good workers who get through and get things done. So I don't know if it's that. I'm just saying, I'm playing devil's advocate here in a ways because I don't care as much. I just think it would have been more interesting to have another young team win this championship going forward. And because, like you said, you've complained about in the past, tag team wrestling always feels like it's on its ass. And here's a good opportunity where you could have elevated one of the two young teams. I shouldn't even say young because they both teams have been around for enough, but still young. They're not as established as either the system. You know, Brian Myers has been a vet of the game and trained half the roster, right. or the Broken Hardys, who at this point in juncture, like I said, they're on that legendary status, right? So I'm just saying there.
And I get that, and I guess part of that could be the type of decision where it's like, hey, we do have a TV deal, we do need to put our stars on TV, we should put stars with belts. So I get that to a certain extent, But in an era of needing to reinvent yourself, sometimes you just need to go for broke, right? So I see both sides of it. It's Road Dogg. Come on, Road Dogg's booking the show, and New Age Outlaws put over the Hardy Boys a million years ago. So you got to give them the rub again.
There you go. The rest of the card, like I said, was fine. Nothing jumping out at me as far as like, hey, let's do a deeper dive on. I was good with Cedric Alexander retaining. It was a good match. Elijah and AJ Francis was exactly what we thought it was going to be. I was super happy, mostly because of my hatred of the Elegance brand, to see Demon X Bunny win. Also, I do love Rosemary and Ali, so that was cool to see as well. Mustafa Ali, I thought was the right decision. Not that I'm happy to see Uhaa Nation back. I'm happy to see what's going to happen there. However, not pulling the trigger on that, perfect. And because that I thought it was too much desperation, and Moose and Eddie Edwards tore the house down.
Yes.
So I mean, I thought the whole card solid. You posed it to me earlier, so I'll pose it to you first here. Yes or no? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Is TNA Slammiversary pass or not?
This passed. This overachieved. It definitely had some hurdles going into it, and it felt like a show that didn't have backstage hurdles going into it. And again, some of those backstage hurdles, again, that's the internet blowing those things out of proportion. And I get that, but at the end of the day, this show was worthy of your time.
I'm also saying pass, and it was a very good show. They've had a hard time lately sticking the landing. I don't know if they did, because obviously it's coming on as we're recording 9:00. So we'll see if they stick the landing. So you'll have to wait till next week. But I'd like to say that I thought that they did a fine job. I thought that the show went well, and it was entertaining the three-way through. Like I said, there wasn't other than, and I know I'm catching beatings for it, but other than Elijah and AJ Francis, which actually overperformed what I thought it would be, I thought everything else was fine. All right, let's move on to later that night where we have overlapping shows, because at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the CW network, and I use network very loosely, NXT Great American Bash 2026 on TV, counter programming at its finest. Did it stand up to the sniff test? Let's go. Let's do the rundown of the card. As we said before. Oh, I made the graphic, so I should put it up. So yeah, let's do the rundown of the card. The rundown of the card. Once again, the ground rules have been established this whole show. I'm going to do the whole rundown. Then we're just going to talk about the likes and dislikes of the show. So let's start off with the opening contest. By the way, Miss Sammy, this was the opening contest. I'm going in order. For the NXT Championship, your champion, Tony D'Angelo, taking on Evil, or Naraku now. Your match got 10 minutes and 12 seconds, and at the end of the day, going over clean, I might add, Tony D is still your NXT champion. Next up, the NXT Women's North American Championship on the line. Zarya trying to get a big win here over Tatum Paxley and defending her title. This match got 14 minutes, 9 seconds. At the end of the day, no surprise to anybody, your winner and still NXT Women's North American Champion, Zarya, once again getting that final win before presumably Tatum Paxley goes up to the main roster. Next up, we had a battle of two young bulls who are trying to elevate themselves in NXT, which we'd have another one later on. But Shiloh Hill would defeat Tristan Angels in 13 minutes and 7 seconds. We'll talk about that in a second. Next up, and I still don't get why this is always defended on these shows, but the WWE Women's Speed Championship was on the line as your champion, Ren Sinclair, took on Ariana Grace. This match got 4 minutes and 49 seconds. And by the way, remind me, this is a Speed Championship match. Your winner by submission, Ren Sinclair, and still your Women's Speed Champion. Next up, another. I said that we were going to get another. This was more of a grudge match, but two young bulls getting it on, elevating their stock. Saquon Sugas defeated Dion Lennox 14 minutes and 21 seconds. Next up, the NXT Men's North American Championship was on the line. Your champion, the Mini Viper, Miles Bourne, taking on Tavion Heights. This match got 17 minutes and 15 seconds at the end of the day. Your winner and still NXT Men's North American Champion, Miles Bourne. And in the main event of the evening, for the NXT Women's Championship, your champion, Lola Vice, defending against Kendall Gray. This match got 15 minutes, 13 seconds. And at the end of the day, your winner and the new NXT Women's Champion, Kendall Gray. Let's start there. Why shouldn't we? We should just start with the main events, because they were all, not only were, I will give you this, all four events, the main event was the big talk, whether it was in or outside the ring, right? In a lot of ways. Because once again, Obafemi winning didn't become the big talk until Monday. Sami Zayn got the more press winning, whether good or bad. So here we go, Kendall Gray. And oh boy, did we get some backlash right away. I think that's the other thing. So Kenya here, who is your favorite WWE wrestler? I'll actually entertain this real quick. Who's your favorite right now on the roster, Sammy?
Right now, today?
Right now, today. I'm not talking all time. Right now, today, 2026.
Today. With the work that they're doing right now, Pulse, Trick Williams.
You know what? It's funny you said that, because that's my pick too. Like, I'm being serious. Right now, if you're asking me in 2026.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I love CM Punk. I love Paige. There's some people that I just love, but if I'm looking at who is doing the best work overall right now, it's Trick Williams.
I agree. That I honestly, that was my honestly, before you even said it, I was like, yep, right now in 2026. If we're talking all time, a little different. But anyways, let's go back to, I just wanted to entertain the chat. Why not? Throw a question out there. I'm going to entertain it, right? So Kendall Gray winning, man, the backlash was instant. I mean, I know a lot of us love Kendall Gray winning. I did laps around the living room. Like, I didn't watch it live when I found out about it. I instantly watched this match because we know I was a Lola Vice hater. I admit it. It is what it is. But I also like Kendall Gray a lot. Reminds me a lot of Kurt Angle. Obviously paying homage to Kurt Angle in a lot of ways. So I was very happy that she won. But man, how The people who were happy got like it was equal to the people who were like, well, what does this make sense? Kalani Jordan was doing this whole feud with Lola Vice, and now she doesn't win it, but Kendall wins it. So why can't we have Kalani Jordan versus Kendall Gray, folks? Like, why? What Kendall? So Kalani Jordan can only wrestle Lola Vice? Come on!
I love how you did default internet wrestling commentator voice go, because that is just exactly how they all sound when they're just
they sound like that. It's terrible. And the worst part about it is like, oh, well, they built a story. Well, why can't you have Lola Vice and Kalani Jordan fight each other and the winner gets to take on Kendall Gray? Like, that's how feuds usually work, right? Or here's the thing, because then we can also get Kendall Gray against a Jada Parker. We can get a Kendall Gray against, Azaria. Ren Sinclair, who is your speed champion, maybe wants to make the up climb. Who knows? I know, but I'm just saying.
Well, Lola Vice is a champion that has over-delivered and overperformed for an extended period of time, which, kudos to them, right? Really, because it's the champion we never really expected, and we've gotten a lot of miles out of it. What's next for her to do? Get back in the chase, True. Get it back, right? Like, what else is there for them to do? Get back in the chase. I think this is a great time to do it. And I thought the match was really solid.
Oh, I thought the match was great. I honestly, I will say this. As much as I fancy myself not liking Lola Vice, I will say this. This was one of Lola Vice's best matches.
There's an argument to be made. I don't know if I could make it enough, but there's an argument to be made for each 4 shows. The main event was the best match of the night.
There's an argument. I agree. Yeah. I agree. But I love this. It was a great crowning moment, not even because of being a low later. I thought Kendall has worked her ass off. I think that she's done a great job. She's got the crowd behind her. She got to be the main event of the main event, closing the show on Great American Bash. See, these are the kind of things that WWE says, like, oh, it's great to get the rub from Brock Lesnar 3 times, be in the ring with Brock Lesnar. And to a certain extent, those things are true. So I don't want to completely backpedal on that argument. To a certain extent, those things are true. Think about it. Lola Vice was in the main event in a championship match, closing a show. That is a pretty good big rub for someone who's been a long champion, who has overachieved and overperformed. So, yeah, it's time for her to do something new and to get into the chase. That's the next thing she needs to do, is get the belt back. Tell an interesting story getting the belt back. I agree. On the other end of that, you had Tony D defeating Naraku. I just want to call him evil because he's evil. Evil. He always will be evil to me.
Naraku evil.
Yeah, it's evil. My only issue with that, I thought it was a fine match. My only issue with the match, once again, is that Tony D goes over clean. Like, you had an opportunity to, and I'm not saying he had to cheat to win, but you had an opportunity to involve Mason Rooks a little more because you have a 3-way, a triangle, if you will, of a top tier right now. I mean, I'm not saying other people can't get shots, but there's a clear-cut top tier. Evil, Tony D, Mason Rooks. And you're going to see those guys interact a lot. Why not have Mason Rooks? Because then you could even have Mason Rooks versus Naraku. You could have Mason Rooks versus Tony D. And then Naraku costs Mason Rooks, just like Mason Rooks cost him. And then you get the triple threat match. There's a lot of cool things you could do and make it exciting. Once again, I like Tony D, so I'm good with him winning. I think that there was some meat left on the bone of ways that you could do more things.
Yeah, I wonder if that hesitation is simply knowing that they were putting the show on against competition, and they didn't want to do too much, knowing they were going to do other things, knowing they were going to do other things throughout the night that were, a little bit more of an impact. So it'll be interesting to see where this story goes. I do like them starting the night off with that match. I think that's a great idea. I do like when the big title is on first. It really sets the mood of like, oh my God, this is first. What else are they going to do? Like, I do like that. Obviously, you can't do it all the time, but and the match was fine. It really was. But from a storyline standpoint, there was some more meat on the bone you could have done here.
I think you should have gone more balls to the wall in the show, knowing you were going up against.
Well, that's the thought, right? Like, you are intentionally doing this. You need to go for it if you're going to do it, right? Otherwise, why bother?
peek behind the curtain, Forbidden Door delivered and then some. So like, and I'm not saying this show didn't. We'll talk about that in a second, but I'm just saying when you are going up against a juggernaut right now, and you have to say, and I'm not saying that they've overtaken WWE, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying right now, AEW is on a hot streak. They're the hot hand right now.
Yes.
You need to come correct, because anytime you don't, this is where they can point to the other channel and go, well, you tried to counter program us, but how'd that work out for you?
It does make you wonder.
Who got the headlines?
Right? It does make you wonder if there's a little bit of hesitation. And their thing is that they put out a show, they put out a solid show, and they just, that WWE rub of where it's like, oh, it's a WWE product, people are going to watch it. And that does exist. That is a real thing. But it's like, you guys really got to overperform. Why aren't you putting your main roster? If you think you can crush them, put your main roster against them.
You know, Sammy, though, what does the old saying go? He who hesitates. Oh, wait a minute. That's for Fan Late After Dark. We can't talk about that. Let's end on NXT on a high note here, though. I do want to talk real quick. Zarya and Tatum Paxley, fine match. If that was Tatum Paxley's swan song, I'm glad with it. I do still feel the same way about Zarya kind of getting disrespected a little bit, because she seems to have these swan matches and it doesn't come at the right time as she ate pins. Miles Bourne and Tavion Heights did a tremendous job. You know, as much as I joke about Mini Viper, if you will, he is impressive. Tavion Heights is going to be a star. Like you can't say Tavion Heights isn't going to be, does all the things right. But I want to highlight really quickly the two matches that we both said they had the potential to be coming out parties, and I think both of them were, and that would be Shiloh Hill versus Christian Angels and Saquon Sugars versus Dion Lennox. And I think both those matches delivered. I'm not saying that they were greatest matches of all time. I'm not saying they were the best matches of the weekend. I'm not saying that they were even the best matches of the night. What I'm saying is that 2-3 years from now, when the four of them are, you know, top mid-card, top guys, or on their way to being top guys, you're going to look back at this night and go, hey, we got to see a peek of it then. I thought all four of them handled their matches really well. I was impressed with all four of them coming out of their matches. I thought having the spotlight shine on them, whether it was Saquon and Dion with their grudge match and their feud, I thought they handled it well. And then, of course, Shiloh and Tristan for fight over who's the new up-and-comer. I thought that was phenomenal as well. We love the world. I think the world of Shiloh Hill, but Christian Angels is also no slouch. Improved in this match, he can handle the spotlight. That was the one thing in both these matches. Not only did you have four young men in there, but you had the spotlight the brightest. They made sure they shined a spotlight. And kudos, I want to say, and I'm before passing it over you, kudos to all four of them for taking a hold of those reins and riding it in and delivering. Your thoughts, Miss Sammy?
100% agree. I mean, it's four people in like 5, maybe 6 years we're going to see in a Money in the Bank match, along with I don't know, maybe a Trick Williams has already been like a 2-time champion and he's in the chase and somebody else. But you know what I mean? Like that's the kind of position that they are, that the Paul Heymans of the world, who are only sitting in the meetings when they're booking 2 years out, that's what he's thinking. And again, people need to do that. And that is 100% what they did over the weekend. They got on the radar of people where it's like, okay, yeah, this is going to be the next crop of NXT to be competing for the North American and the NXT championship. And then in a couple of years, this is who we're looking at to do what these guys are doing with the Obafemis and the Trick Williams and the Javon Evans and everyone else are doing right now. And that is important. That is incredibly important.
Absolutely.
I think overall, though, I think this show is the afterthought of the weekend, though.
Yeah. So real quick, I'll answer the question first before passing to you. Yes. Did it a thumbs up, thumbs down pass? Yes, it passed. However, I think they did not do themselves any favors booking this right up against Forbidden Door. If they would have put this on Saturday night, so you would have ran WWE Night of Champions during the afternoon, because that was 2 p.m. Eastern, and you would have ran this at 7 or 8 p.m. on a Saturday, and you would have kept it separate, I think there would have been a lot more press time for it. I think there would have been a lot more people like us praising the young talent that did a great job. I think because you put it on, you didn't steal any of the audience, because anybody who was paying for Forbidden Door was not and I repeat, was not tuning into this. And B, you did not get the headlines. Putting it up against Forbidden Door. And before we even talk about it, I'll set the table standard high. Forbidden Door living up to what we thought it was going to be, and then some. They got all the headlines. Every single one of them. And that is a disservice to the NXT roster, who put on one hell of a show.
Yep.
Your thoughts? Overall, yep or no?
Yeah, no, this once again, I guess spoiler.
Everyone passed. Everyone
passed, and everyone either performed or slightly overperformed, except for AEW, who overperformed. And ultimately, though, Clash of Champions, it had the night to itself, and was a really solid show, and had an interesting main event. TNA had a lot of interesting news stories going into it, and AEW is doing their big collab show. These guys got a bunch of headlines. This is unfortunately the afterthought of the weekend, and it's not really fair to that NXT faithful audience and that the NXT roster. And you're 100% correct. You could have done something for the US audience, and you could have run this afterwards, and I think it would have fared a lot better to the audience and to the NXT roster.
At least it would have gotten headlines for 24 hours. That's my thoughts. Like people would have been talking more about it, and because at the same time there was just more hype behind the show we're about to talk about it. And let's that we've already kind of talked about, so let's not bury the lead any longer. The last show of the weekend, Sunday night, June 28th, Forbidden Door from San Jose, California. Once again, ground rules. We're going to run through the card, then we're going to break down what we want to talk about. So chat, drop in what you want to talk about, your thoughts. We will get to that as well. If there's a match that we are overlooking, we always want to hear. All right. Let's run down the card. 12 matches. So I'm going to run down this one. We had 3 pre-show matches, so about normal for them on the 0 hours. Drilla Maloney would defeat Daniel Garcia in 10 minutes and 26 seconds in a really good opening contest. We had Micah defeat Sky Blue in a survival of the fittest qualifying match for the TBS Championship, which we now know who won that. We'll talk about that later. And then we had the AEW Women's World Tag Team Championships on the line as Divine Dominion, Megan Bayne, and Lena Cross would defend against Thunder Rosa in Olympia, 10 minutes and 48 seconds. Your winners and still AEW Women's World Tag Team Champions, Divine Dominion. Once again, I still think they're getting the shaft on the pre-show. No offense. But it was it was what it was. We'll talk about that. Let's start with the actual main card. It opened up with a 3-way dance tag team extravaganza. They got 17 minutes and 50 seconds. And at the end of the day, the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, would defeat El Sky Team, Mystico and Mascara Dorado, and Unbound Company, Shingo Takagi and Titan, to come out victorious. Then in a surprising move, the second match of the main card was one of the matches we were all dying to see, as Kenny Omega returned to his best bout machine in the cleaner ways, as he would defeat the technical wizard Zack Sabre Jr. in 26 minutes and 30 seconds. I have some thoughts about that. We'll talk about it in a minute. Next up, the AEW Continental Championship was on the line. Your champion, Jon Moxley, taking on the Ring of Honor World Champion, Bandito. This match got 18 minutes and 10 seconds. And at the end of the day, your winner and still the AEW Continental Champion, Jon Moxley. Then we would have the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship on the line. Your champion, Shota Umino, taking on Pac. This match got 18 minutes and 15 seconds. And at the end of the day, your winner and still the IWGP Global Heavyweight Champion, Shota Umino. Then we would have another title on the line, as the AEW Women's World Championship was on the line, as your champion Tekla would take on Stardom's Starlight Kid. This match got 18 minutes and 45 seconds, and the woman who's banned from Japan and still your AEW Women's World Champion Tekla would walk out with the win. Next up, the AEW World Tag Team Championships were on the line, as your champions Cope and Cage, Adam Copeland and Christian Cage, would take on the Dogs, David Finlay and Clark Connors. Match got 16 minutes and 45 seconds. And at the end of the day, your winners, with a little bit of an assist from a return Actually, let's say it. The returning of the Switchblade, Jay White.
Huge
Toby
pop.
Cage. That was a huge one. We'll talk about that more. Next up, we had the finals of the Women's Owen Hart Cup. Winner will receive a championship match for the AW Women's World Championship at All In Wembley Stadium on August the 30th. In 24 minutes and 55 seconds, Mercedes Moné would run it back-to-back as your Women's Owen Hart Cup champion by defeating Maya World. Of course, that means that Mercedes Moné will go on to Wembley to take on the Toxic Spider Tekla for the AEW Women's World Championship. Then we had the Death's Door match. By the way, interesting concept, circle cage around the ring, kind of like New Japan does when they do that. And of course, this match had a stipulation that if Mark Briscoe's team won, he would get a shot at the AEW World Championship. And of course, when it was all said and done after 30 minutes and 50 seconds, Team Briscoe would win. Mark Briscoe, Orange Cassidy, Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, Takeshita, and Darby Allin as they would defeat DC MJF as MJF, Kevin Knight, Kyle Fletcher, Jake Doyle, Okada, and of course, Andrade El Idolo, who left the team high and dry, making his face turn. Honestly, that's been coming for a while, but yeah. And last but certainly not least, in the main event of the evening, and kudos to AEW for making this the main event because it deserved to be, the finals of the Men's Owen Hart Cup. Of course, the winner will get the AEW World Championship match at All In Wembley on August 30th. This match got 35 minutes and 30 seconds. At the end of the day, your winner and the 2026 Men's Owen Hart Cup winner and the man who will get the main event slot for the AEW World Championship in Wembley Stadium, his home country. The Billy Goat, the aerial assassin, Will Ospreay defeated Swerve Strickland in one hell of a match. Now, let's just stay with the night. Let's just talk about the main event. And I remember you saying this, and I couldn't agree more. You said, firstly, you could make an argument that every main event was the best match of the night. The only two that I would say there would be an argument for a different match would possibly be TNA. And actually, no, I think TNA is the only one. And not that the main event was bad, but there was a couple other really good matches on the card. Night of Champions, I still think that triple threat was probably the best match of the night.
Yeah.
No offense to anybody else. But this, not only did it go last, but it was match of the weekend. Match of the I'm glad nobody had to follow this. Did it give a run to Mask versus Mask? Yes, but it did not surpass. I want to say that. I will be honest.
Yes.
I do not think it surpassed Mask versus Mask. However, it gave it a run. It's definitely match of the year contender, but I don't think it surpassed, in my opinion, Mask versus Mask. With that being said, though, and I'm going to tell you why it didn't. Tremendous match.
Yes.
We know that these two were going to leave in the ring. Listen, I heard some people that were offended by the amount of blood that was spilled. I thought it was perfect. I thought it told the story we were talking about. You have the most dangerous wrestler in the world in Swerve Strickland. That's what we book him as, right? He said he's there to rain on the parade at any cost against Will Ospreay. Okay, cool. Will Ospreay has to take it to another level. The whole reason for him training with Jon Moxley and the Death Riders was to take it to another level. How do you show that? Because he was bleeding. He made the other guy bleed, and they went out there and had left it all in the ring. That is the definition of two guys that left it all in the ring, right? And I think that they showcased that. I understand some people are squeamish. I didn't think it was out of character. I thought it actually added to the match because it told the story. Let's go into the only downside, and the only thing that the only reason I put Mask versus Mask over is damn how many fucking false finishes there were. And I know I just dropped an F-bomb.
Yeah, no, but you're right.
I was like, go ahead.
Well, it's just not only just the false finishes, but the story overall of Mask versus Mask, and not just the in-ring story, because I think the in-ring storytelling may have been a little stronger here. But just the whole story of Mask versus Mask, getting through all of that, just adds that a little extra. And again, we've given AEW a lot of props on it, but storytelling has not always been overall storytelling has not always been their strongest thing. They tell stories in the ring, which they do, and they did here, but sometimes the getting there isn't always as strong as other companies. I'm not saying WWE is doing a good job of it right now, but they have in the past. But mask versus mask did. So
listen, here's what the problem with the false finishes. I think that they went too hard in the paint for him, and I didn't, and I think it took a little bit away because they hit everything but the kitchen sink. Now, granted, I will say this because it also kind of crapped on the finish because I thought the finish was really good. Like, if you took away some of those false finishes earlier on, that finish where like Will Ospreay's left for dead at this point. He's like, let's be honest, he's done. Here come the Death Riders. The Death Riders are banging on the mat. The crowd is behind him now. The crowd is even more behind him than they were all night. Because mind you, Will Ospreay's the most over. We know this, right?
Yeah.
And now the crowd gets really wild because the Death Riders are out there. Moxley's banging on. They're like, come on. This is what you trained for. Don't give up. And they're reminding you of that story at the finish. And they're going so hard for him. And then Swerve, not to be deterred, hits him with that kick. Like, you're like, that's it. It's over. But instead of going down, his head turns. Will Ospreay's head turns. And he catches the eyes of Jon Moxley. They lock eyes. And in that moment, Moxley looks and does a perfect job. It can't be undersold how good Moxley's facial looks and features are. He's looking at him with that, don't give up. Like not like, oh, he's done. He just got hit with a house call. Not any of that. He's like, no. You don't give up. And Will Ospreay's response is instead, and it's not that he no-sold it, it was that he caught eyes, and instead of going down, and as he's going down, he catches himself, and he's just like, he gets visibly angry. Like, you know what? You didn't kill me. You just pissed me off. And he gets back up and we go into the finish where he uses the Tiger Driver for the finish, showing once again, he said he wasn't going to use it, but he said that he has to go to that next gear. What has Jon Moxley been teaching him? You have to go to the next gear if you want to be world champion, especially if you're going to go in there against MJF, who is going to do anything and everything in his power to walk out as champion. There is no limit that he would not go to retain a belt. So if you want to, you have to be willing to walk into the mouth of hell, and you have to be willing to do things that you won't do. And yes, you respect Swerve Strickland. And yes, you guys have a friendship. But this is where you have to prove that you're willing to do it. So hitting him with a Tiger Driver told the story that we needed. You know, the next part of the story, and I've already said it, is simple. It's going to be Jon Moxley's going to tell him, you need one more test. And that test is you love and respect me now because of what I've given to you. And now I need you to come and pull the trigger on me. Not because you hate me, not because I hate you, but because if you can go to the lengths you have to go to beat me, then you will go to those lengths to beat anybody. And that is the story I think they're going to tell. And I think that is the perfect story because going into Wembley, into his home country, into the hometown field advantage, in front of the biggest crowd that hopefully anybody's ever been in front of, even outselling their last time. Because I think it could happen, especially with the card we're going to get. I think that they're on the right path. And that's why I'm kind of upset that they kind of and I don't want to say drop the ball because they didn't. They just tried to do too much. And nothing against Will and nothing against Swerve because I think both of them are tremendous. But those false finishes, I think that somebody should have been like, guys, cut those in half because you're blowing too much. You're blowing too much of the proverbial load before we get to that great finish. And that finish is what you needed and what you got.
And that's one of those things where we continue to be a little critical of AEW and their styling because they're not always good at letting things resonate. When you have a good false finish, it resonates. But when you just keep jumping from that, when you're overdoing it, and that is absolutely a fair right, and that's a fair criticism of AEW. But another criticism of AEW is their long-term storytelling, and we just did earlier. But again, within this story, which again, the Swerve part with Will Ospreay and getting here, yeah, they have history and they have their friendship, whatever. But the storytelling between the two of them wasn't really the strongest. It was really the story between Swerve and Moxley and the Death Rider. So that was really carrying this here. Ospreay and Moxley carrying this story to this, whereas Swerve was just also involved in it. But think about how we got here. He didn't use that move because of what happened with that move, right? And who was the one that helped bury Bryan Danielson? Jon Moxley.
Mm-hmm.
There's some long-term storytelling for you. Look, I feel like I'm Dave Meltzer right now. They do long-term storytelling. There it is.
They do. They do. But they do long-term storytelling.
They do.
And I've said it before. They do it well.
Right.
No, it's not always perfect, but they do it well.
It's not always perfect. They're not always good at referencing back to it and stuff like that. But there it is, everyone. There it is.
I think to fair criticism, calling it right down the middle like we do. The fair criticism is that I think that they rely on the viewer too much to call back themselves.
Yeah.
And not everybody is watching everything, unfortunately. You know what I mean? They've gotten better at it. Tony Khan has gotten better at giving you the breadcrumbs now, okay? Yes. There was a time where it was like, if you weren't a sicko, you weren't getting something. Like me and you got it because we watch the product all the time. So we're like, okay, I get where they're going. But I could see how the Joe Casual fan who doesn't have time to watch every episode or every pay-per-view, when you're bringing them in, they don't get that, they're calling back to 2 years ago. You know what I mean? So fairly enough, the fact that they're actually making, once again, I always give the devil their due. And I'm not saying they're the devil. I think that Tony Khan has made leaps and bounds. They're better than where they were. Yeah, well, that's true. We will give him his due in a second. But this is going back to something that there has the one problem that I've had with AEW for a long time, and still do, because I got to be fair. Even though listen, I think that it's fair enough to say that I've gone to the point where I'm now putting them over a lot more than I used to, because they deserve it. Once again, calling it down the middle, they deserve it. The problem that I still have had is that they need a finish guy. I've said it a million times. And the reason why is not because they don't have some good finishes. I just said it. The finish to Osprey Strickland was a great finish. The problem is they cheapened it because of some other choices. And if you had somebody that was a finish guy, they would go, okay, we're not going to make those choices earlier. So when we do this finish, you get all of it. We give it all to you. And I think that's where they're missing. And where also was showcased in the night was Omega versus Zack Sabre Jr. When you get midway through that match, they have an amazing back and forth reversal fest. Instead of like the false finishes, they did this great reversal into this. They did both kick out of their finishes on the count of, well, not the one-winged angel, but he kicked out of the V trigger and everything on a one count. And so you're like, and then, it went back and forth and it was beautiful. But then the end of the match, it felt like it was a slow paced finish. We finally get the one-winged angel and it's over, which is fine. I'm not crapping on it. But I'm like, you just did this flurry like halfway through the match. And then the ending was slower, which didn't make as much sense. They should have saved that flurry for the end and ended the flurry with basically Zack Sabre Jr. trying to reverse something and then Kenny hits the one-winged angel, and it would have been a lot better. So they could have paced that middle part at the end and made it better. And instead it kind of made the match, I don't want to say clunky, because that's not the right term, but it made the match like bottom heavy, if you will. It was weird. And it didn't, like, I still thought it was a good match. Oh, the hell with that. A great match. I just think that they would have been better off to do it a little differently. And I think that that's where they're suffering for. And that happened again in the main event, only with false finishes. Sammy?
No, I'm with you on that. I think the only other critique I can have on this show, because again, this show every year is the show if you like wrestling. If you're here for crazy, insane matches, and I'm not talking about hardcore style death match stuff, just if you are a sicko for wrestling, in-ring competition, this is the show to watch every year, because the storytelling going into it is always going to be light, because it's a logistical challenge to have people all over the world in different companies coming together for like basically 3 weeks to tell it. It's a concept that's never really going to work in the way that the audience wants a WCW, WWE proper invasion. And we saw what happened when you could do that. It didn't work either. So it's only really ever worked once on a large scale, which was the TNA NXT thing. But anyway, I digress. Mm-hmm. The only other major critique I can have on this show was just the match formatting. I think the way that the matches were laid out in terms of when they appeared on the card wasn't the strongest. I agree with the way it finished, of course. I think that cage match should have started the night. And here's why. Your top star, your top heel is MJF. And something that's been a little lost in AEW is they don't necessarily do a ton of like pay-per-view segments, backstage segments and stuff like that. Again, because they're just jamming the stuff in the ring. But if you have MJF going out there first and losing, in a losing effort, he's stewing all night, because he knows he's got those two guys at the end of the night and they're next in line for him. I think you could do a little more with that, and that's something I like, and hopefully AEW, because they listen to the show. We know they do because they listen to everything we do because they've been implementing it. So I hope that's something they can look at and go, you know what, geez, there is an opportunity there. MJF goes on first. You start the match off really hot. You get the cage thing out of the way, so you don't have to deal with that anymore. And yeah, MJF hangs around. You could do that segment, and you could even have a Renee go to him like, Max, what are you doing here? Normally you're gone after you're done wrestling. And you'd be like, yeah, you could have him, you could show that little bit of nervousness, that cockiness not being there. He's coming off a loss, and there's two guys at the end of the night. Like that would be some strong character work that could have worked well here.
Oh, I agree with you 110% there. And I mean, that's just some things that they have been working on, to be fair. Yes. But I mean, it would have paid off here. And to your point, I think it is because of the nature of this show. This show is not story driven for the most part. I mean, granted, we did see a couple really good stories play out here, right? But it's not because of the nature of the show. It just can't be. Because like, i.e., we did see, because fast forward to Dynamite, we did see that kind of like what we both predicted. This is the start of a Kenny Omega try to get that last title run. And that now you have will you they or won't they give him the belt? And could it possibly be Omega versus Ospreay in Wembley, which is a very good possibility. I'm not saying, and quite honestly, this is going to sound weird. As much as I love the idea of MJF versus Ospreay because of heel face, I don't know. The big hand could be Omega Ospreay. You could pull that trigger easy. And I won't be upset about it. Just throwing that out there. But they said they paved the road. And so there was a storytelling there. They paved the road in an interesting way for this whole Shota Umino. You know, he was the protege of Jon Moxley, Jon Moxley's young boy. He was the first Death Rider, in Japan. And, he has the falling out. He has to fight Pac here. And then you have the showdown with him and Moxley. Like, did it look like Moxley was going to give him the handshake? Maybe, maybe not. But we'll never know because, we have the run out, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I shouldn't say run out because as much as I love seeing the ace, Tanahashi wasn't running nowhere. And I love the ace. I really do. I love the ace.
Yes.
But I did like seeing him. It just, that was painful to watch him walk down the ramp. And I mean that because of the love I have for him. But still setting up a really cool storyline there, I thought. Tekla and Starlight Kid told a really nice story. The band in Japan stuff coming in really well. Tekla getting the win when she's had struggled with defeating Starlight Kid in the past. Thought that was very fitting. Cope and Cage getting the win in a big way. Obviously, there's a reason. We'll get to it, but that helps us get to Wembley as well, where we're presumably going to have that 4-way tables, ladders, and chairs match. Presumably, once again, we have to presume it still happens. And but. I mean, the big story there was finally we got the return of Switchblade Jay White to a thunderous ovation. Yeah. To say Switchblade Jay White is over is an understatement. And I love seeing the Switchblade Black. I'm just saying that, throwing it out there. Loved it.
Yeah, and we've been critical of his storytelling and booking in AEW over the years. This is a huge opportunity. Huge opportunity for a face group, because this has generally been a heel group. Here's an opportunity as a face group, and I think you really have to put them right in the middle of that main event scene right now, because Switchblade, he's worthy of it. He's an amazing in-ring competitor, an amazing storyteller. I think you got to get him involved in the
and you have all the tools.
Yeah,
you have all the tools there. So look at it like this: you have Switchblade Jay White, a main event star, who you can make AEW World Champion anytime and nobody will bat an eye about, right? Then you have your entertaining jester, if you will, in Juice Robinson, and there ain't none better at the job. Then you have a very underrated but junior heavyweight in Ace Austin, who's very entertaining but also very good in the ring. And then let's not forget that you have a very good tag team in the Guns. Like who overachieved and due to injury and stuff have not been in that scene. But hey, as that scene that we've seen, it's been coming back in AEW, they could be interjected in and be in the title hunt anytime because they're that good. And I really think that there's some opportunity here. So you have a group that could hold belts across the board and be entertaining, and the crowd is behind them. So you're right. I think that this is one of we say it all the time in the show. but mark the calendars. This is shit to get off the pot moment. Because
Yeah,
you could put the Gun
really
Club,
feels
the
like
Bang
it.
Bang Gang, sorry, the Bang Bang Gang over, and you're going to make a ton of money on sales, on merch. The crowds are going to be behind it, and yeah, it's a win financially. It's a win storyline wise.
It feels fresh, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
and it's someone you know is solid. Switchblade is so solid in the ring, and it feels fresh because unfortunately, you know, due to injury and such, it unfortunately is. So, and he's so young. People forget that.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a very young man, so he's got a long career still, barring anything tragic, right? Only the other thing I want to highlight real quick, because I think we did a good job of kind of touching on everything, was the women's Owen Hart Cup. I mean, was it predictable that Mercedes Moné was going to win? Absolutely. Was it the match I thought I was going to get? I will say this, there was a little jitters. You could tell Maya World was a little nervous with the spotlight on her. However, I don't want to take anything away from her. I thought she still had a great coming out party with Mercedes Moné. She still held her own. Was there a couple hiccups in the match? Absolutely. If you're going to crucify Maya World for it, that's on you. You shouldn't. I thought she handled the lights. I listen, anybody at her age who is in there with their idol in a big match scenario, the fact that she made it through that match and the fact that the match was that good, I don't give a damn that there was a few botches in the match. She still kept up with Mercedes Moné. She still showed up and showed out. And I think that this was proving once again that a very young, mind you, Maya World is very young. She is going to be a big star. I mean, and I hate to say the second coming of people, but really, what in a lot of ways, what you saw in that ring was a mirror match. You saw the younger version of Mercedes Moné in that ring. And I think Mercedes, as the elder stateswoman and as somebody who I think wants Maya World to succeed, I think taught her a few lessons that night. Not in a like, oh, I was stiff or whatever, but the lessons of like, hey, kid, you slow it down here. Hey, kid, you do this here. By being in the ring and learning how Moné operates. And I'm telling you, I've said it before, Mercedes Moné, when you're talking about the technical in-ring stuff and knowing when to hold them and when to fold them, if you will, there ain't money better. The only ever criticism I'll ever give Mercedes Moné, and it is a positive and a negative at the same time, but I always lean towards the positive, is she is the person that when you need a big match and a big moment, she has no problem throwing it all at the wall. Does that mean it crashes and burns sometimes? Yes, but that's the risk you get. You're either going to have it, and I was sitting there on the couch, not the couch, the chair, watching with the dog and with Pen M, and it dawned on me, like, she's going to All In again for the second year, vying for the world title. This time, not by design. This time was because of an injury. Like, let's be honest, this was going to be Willow Nightingale's year. It was set up to be that way. You can't tell me it wasn't. And unfortunately, due to injury, they had to call on the reliever. She wasn't going to come back at this point. Not that she wasn't coming back, she was, but she was doing other things. The fact that she dropped what she was doing and came back to work shows a lot about who she is as a person. So for those people who crap on her, get out of here. And on top of that, not only does it show who she is as a person, it also shows that she deserves this big spot in Wembley where it's going to be a big time match because her and Tekla are going to tear the house down. I have a feeling that that's going to be match of the year contender. I don't know if it passes Mass versus Mass, but still, I'll call it contender. But it definitely could be and probably will be the women's match of the year all day. And why? Not because there's not other great wrestlers out there, because there's a litany. There's a spoil of riches in the women's division across the board in every company. The fact that we can point to going Tekla versus Mercedes Moné could go down as an all-time great is amazing. And not that mention, Mercedes Moné, everybody forgot, is one of the last women to main event a WrestleMania.
Bingo.
She main evented. Last went on last. Her and Bianca Belair, and Bianca Belair's coming out party. Most people forget that.
And it's an incredibly fresh matchup, too.
Yes. We haven't seen this match. I mean, sorry, we have in Japan.
Yeah, it happened.
But not on the main, but not on the main stage. Not on the big stage.
Main stage and not for the big audience. Like, this is.
Yeah. This is everything you want. And I said it before, I'll say it again. I know we're not giving predictions for All In right now, but listen, honestly, if you were going to reward Mercedes Moné with the belt, this is the time. Give her the belt because she's done enough.
Good.
She's, you know what? It's not because she needs the belt. It's actually the reward of, hey, we want to make you champion because you came back. And also, you can set up down the road her and Willow when Willow comes back, because that's a feud that we already have. It's established and people love. And we can go back to it. And we got to get Mercedes back to the top game. And she is. Like, in the ring, like I said, I thought she did a great job in this match with Maya World. There was a couple hiccups. But once again, and I'm not blaming Maya completely, but listen, you judge Maya World when you walk in her boots. Because quite frankly, I think for her being in that big spotlight of a match as young as she is, she handled it very good.
Well, I think that's something to really highlight here. You know, the experience, the difference in experience levels. And you talked about, you know, Mercedes, you know, you yourself who have helped format and book matches and everything, like that experience level. I think it really, we need to hammer that point home. Like, Mercedes is in this match. Mercedes is an established legend at this point. And I guarantee you she's in her ear saying, it's okay to be bold. It's okay to be brave. It's okay to do something big. We don't need to go out there and just and have just, you know, a paint by the numbers solid match. Like, if you want to do that, we can do that. But it's okay to be bold. It's okay to take chances. It's okay to make mistakes. And I think overall, yeah, did mistakes happen? Yeah, sure. Okay. But I still think it's important that you went out there and you did that. And yeah, some of them didn't work, but you did it. You still tried it. I think that's a huge lesson for someone to learn. And to learn that from Mercedes is huge.
I like that you pointed that out, though. I really do. I think Mercedes probably told her, hey, I don't care that you didn't catch that right. Doesn't matter. Do it again. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, that's not going to define this match. It's not going to define the moment. If we get ourselves lost in it and then we start panicking and then we start messing up more, that's when we get lost in it. Listen, we could have a safe, easy match, or we could go out there and try to tear down the house. And guess what? Maybe we didn't quite make it to that top tier match, but we still tore down the house. That is what is important at the end of the day. And I think Maya World is going to come out of this a better wrestler.
Yes.
She's now been exposed to a big stage with the lights shining bright on her against a big time star. Not saying that Athena's not a big star and she hasn't wrestled big stars, but you didn't do it when the lights were brightest in a big match scenario where there was a shot at a world title at the biggest show of the year on the line and everybody was watching you on a show, as you pointed out, and you're absolutely right, where wrestling fans go, this is a wrestling show. We tune into the show for great wrestling. You have pressure. You want to talk about pressure? You have it all. And the fact that she went out there and had a really good match with one of the greatest women to ever lace them up speaks volumes for Maya World, and it speaks volumes for Mercedes Moné, because this match got 24 minutes and 55 seconds. Mercedes could have just said, hey, listen, I'm going to have a little 8-minute match and I'm going to take the win. Right. And what's Tony? And listen, and people go, oh, you know, yeah, we know that because she has creative control. No, she doesn't just have. She has not creative control. She has this. She's a vet, and she's one of the best to damn do it. So she gets the go to somebody like a Tony Khan. Even if she was in WWE, she'd get to go to trips and go, hey, listen, by the way, I think this is what they can turn you down, but this is what I think I should do.
Right. And that's kind of famously why she left WWE, because it's not creative control. It's creative, like, influence.
Yeah.
I guess is a better way of putting it. And when you are at that point in your career, you do get a little bit of influence because you've established yourself in a certain way. And when you're doing things that just don't make any sense anymore, it's not so much of like, I'm not going to do it. It's more of like, make it make sense to me. Make this make sense to me. And when you're 12 years, 15 years, even 5, 10 years into the business, you get the opportunity to ask those questions. And that's part of the learning experience of learning how to navigate that, how to be bold enough to do that, and when it's appropriate to do that. And that's all that stuff is incredibly valuable.
I'm going to say, I like you said established, but I will say there's a different E word. You earned the right. You hit a certain point and you've earned the right to at least have a say. Once again, you should go out there. I will always say this. You should go out there and do the job. You are hired to do a job. Go do the job. You know, this is not as much as it is like, and this is coming from my time in the wrestling business, and this is no disrespect. And I know a lot of workers will say the same thing. At the end of the day, this is not an athletic competition where the best man wins or the best woman wins. This is a competition where you're putting on the most entertaining match. Your job isn't wins or losses. Your job is to entertain and to make a story and to get people to come back and keep tuning in. That is your job. And it is also to get yourself over so people continue to pay to either see you as a face and cheer you on or as a heel and boo you and want to see you lose. That is your job as a professional wrestler. So at the end of the day, if the booker tells you you're losing tonight, you're losing. And you should do it with class and dignity. You should do it the best. Because sometimes, and I've said this before, and I know that fans don't like to hear this because it's a business at the end of the day, and sometimes you don't like to see the bigger picture. Sometimes a loss is a win. In wrestling, you can win while losing.
Yes.
You can completely win while losing. And there's plenty of examples of that. Plenty of examples. And I'll give you one of the most famous just to prove my point. Stone Cold Steve Austin did not beat Bret the Hitman Hart in the I Quit match at WrestleMania 13. But who won in that match? Don't worry, I'll wait. In public opinion, who won in that match? Nothing against what would happen later with the Montreal Screwjob. We're not even going to bring that into it.
Yeah.
But as soon as Steve Austin passed out from blood loss in the sharpshooter, and we have that image seared in our minds, after that, Steve Austin, who was already on the up peak, he went to the next level. The rocket was strapped to his back and he flew to the moon. And what happened with Bret Hart? Outside of the screw job even, Bret Hart was still a big star, but he was not on the same level as Steve Austin anymore. Steve Austin was now on the... So even if the screw job doesn't happen, even if Bret stays in WWE, you can't convince me that Stone Cold is still not champion the following year at WrestleMania. Because it was already in the stars. That night at 13 made Steve Austin's career. Granted, Austin 316 happened before then. He was already on the incline. But we don't hit the heights that we hit without that. So once again, tell me how you win in a loss. That is how.
He probably beats Bret for the title at that WrestleMania too.
Oh, absolutely.
Days, yeah.
Absolutely.
Shawn Michaels is pissed, but whatever. He's always pissed off back then. And you know what? Just to kind of wrap it up, there are some really famous examples of wrestlers being right about about the way their characters being booked in ways where it doesn't make sense. There are, and Mercedes Moné, in her instance, she wasn't really being booked right in WWE for where she was at. She was lost in the sauce, and that happens. Stone Cold Steve Austin, Brock Lesnar. Did that situation get handled correctly? Not at all. But Austin was right. He's like, hey, we have the opportunity to really make some money here. I'll put him over at King of the Ring. Don't do it on a free Monday Night Raw. Is that correct? Sure. The way it went happen? No. CM Punk, before he left WWE the first time, he was losing to everyone. Was he right? Yes. Did he go about it the right way? No. And there's reasons for all that. But at the end of the day, when you get to that point, you don't have creative control. You have creative influence. And that's where Mercedes is at. And she's right now using it to her benefit. She's helping that roster immensely right now.
I agree. And like I said, I'll always say this about, and it's not that I didn't lose any respect for Mercedes for it. As somebody who was in the business and still holds true to some of the old school philosophies, I thought it was very disrespectful the way she left. Because, she should have just gone out, done the job, and then left. Grievances, whatever, however, be damned, right? But was she justified? Yes. And I will say that all day. I think she was 110% justified. Did I think Stone Cold Steve Austin should have done the right thing? I do. But was he justified? 110%. CM Punk, justified 110%. It still was a little disrespectful, and that's coming from that old school mentality. However, I always say this. We live in a world where it's not black and white. There's a lot of gray areas. So things can be justified and still be kind of, not right. And I think that's it. But I don't think that happened. But here it's showing a different side of Mercedes. I don't want to get away from that. It's showing that Mercedes now wants to be the elder stateswoman. She wants to get over because, like I said, she didn't have to put the young girl over like she did. She really didn't. She took a lot of bumps for her. She took a lot of bumps for her. She took that crazy sunset power bomb onto the floor.
I think people are just I think people are really just thinking of Mercedes when she had all the belts. And it's like, you guys, you got to remember, yes, she has all these belts. She's going to lose all these belts. She's going to put a lot of people over losing these belts. And that is part of the story. Think about how many people now have a win over Mercedes. That's important.
It did get a little stale, though. The problem is that they let it get a little stale. And once again, that's not a fault to Mercedes when people blame her.
Championship in general. It's every champion that's had it has been stale.
I mean, speaking of which, we have a new champion.
Hopefully, it doesn't get stale.
We'll find out. I mean, it's definitely interesting. I think we don't really need to talk too much more. I think that I will say this about Dynamite: they stuck the landing. A lot of times we're very critical. I don't want to dive too much, and we'll talk more about it next week. But they stuck the landing. I thought for once they came out the night after, we got some real good storytelling to move forward on. A lot of times we're coming out here going, hey, well, they had this great pay-per-view, and then And I think that we got a little different here. I think we got some good storytelling. We got some good direction. We have some wrenches in the road. Obviously we're almost 2 full months away from Wembley, because it's August 30th. So we're almost 2 full months away. So you have to somehow keep the momentum. And I think that they did on Dynamite. And I think that they're going to have to keep mixing it up.
I mean, there is the Canada show that they're doing. That's going to be a big deal,
Right.
Obviously, the all storytelling right now is for Wembley. Everything you're doing is for Wembley.
And by the way,
it
kudos to them, because they're doing that. Kudos to them. That's what they're doing. We've always talked about how sometimes they don't do that. Kudos to them for doing it. And I think that, like I said, if this past Dynamite was any indication, not only did they stick the landing of the pay-per-view when they normally don't, but they have now set a tone that even though it's 2 months away, we are building and anything can happen. It's not necessarily set in stone. We're not necessarily getting MJF versus Will Ospreay. It could be Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega. It could be somebody else that we don't even know versus Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay will be there because he's got a guaranteed shot. The champion is not guaranteed. And I think that's cool to set up that tone. Same thing technically with Tekla and Mercedes. Do I think that that's going to happen? No, I don't think Tekla's going to drop the belt between now and then. However, they are teasing like, hey, just because Mercedes has a shot it has a guaranteed shot, does not mean the champion is guaranteed. And that is where you should play with it. That is where you toy with it. You have two people who are guaranteed shots because they earned the right. Now, the way you make it interesting is for the champions to earn their way into the main event spot at All In. And I think that they're doing, if what happened on Wednesday is any indication of where we're going, kudos to them. Keep that up, because I think that you're building, when you want to say if people are going to fill that house, what they're doing right now will continue to fill that house. And you're going to see a big turnout at Wembley. And it could be our friends in the other company this could be a crossroads, pun intended.
Well, yeah. And once again, we're going into a weekend where WWE is they're booking their own stuff the same weekend for a show that's been announced for a long time. And they're like, oh, well, we're going to counter program. And it's like,
that is the biggest mistake that they're making. I would never try to counter program All In. It's not going to work, especially because they're coming. If you know anything, if you're reading the room right, they're coming with one of the greatest cards they've ever put on the table. Just looking at the title matches on paper right now, not considering the fact that you could slide in a couple other things and make it great. Not just looking at that, not looking at the fact that you probably are going to have one of the greatest 4-way tables, ladders, and chairs matches announced. Not to mention everything else that you could put on that card. Andrade Idolo will probably be in a big class match, maybe against Okada or Kyle Fletcher or Switchblade Jay White's going to be in a high profile match. You got him back there. You're going to have some women. There's the undercard of the women's division is so good right now in AEW that, not to mention you could have her, I don't know if she could be ready to return to the ring, but guaranteed Toni Storm showing up to the event. Like, she doesn't have to be ring ready. She just has to show up. And she is. Everybody's going to show up.
She could be the host of the show. Steal that little gimmick from WWE. She's the host of the show. Oh boy, is that going to be fun if she is.
Not to mention, you have an interesting time on your hands because a lot of contracts are up and there's a lot of big names that are out, not just the New Day. You could do one other huge surprise. The New Day I would announce ahead of time. I've said this before. Do not make it a surprise. Announce the tag match as soon as you can. Build to it, because I think that that's where the money is. That doesn't mean you can't take somebody else and make a huge surprise. Now, I'm not saying it has to be like, they don't have to be a main event guy. It could be a mid-card guy. It doesn't matter. It's just a surprise. Use the stuff that you have to your advantage. And I think if it stays the same, I think they will. I think this is going to be one of those times that we look back and go, damn, they stuck the landing. So if I'm WWE right now, am I worried a little bit? Maybe not about them taking over and taking your global supremacy and all your money away.
No.
But I think that you left that door open a little too much. I think that you took your foot off the neck. I think you started slouching. You hit your creative bankruptcy at the wrong time. And when you did, they found all of it. And we're going to see a change. I mark my words. We're going to see a change.
Yeah.
With that being said, I think we've pontificated enough. We've kept you guys a little over, but hey, it was a big week. It was a big show. I am sweating, so thank you guys for putting up with me wiping my sweat or drinking or whatever. But trust me, it is a heat wave here in the Northeast. So the fact that we're here and talking, I think, should be great enough. Got a shout out though. We are powered by FanlightZone.com. Make sure you head over there, check out all the great articles. Make sure you check out the comic reviews. Make sure when you're over at FanlightZone.com, you get all those social media links. You follow us on all of them. We got TikToks and X's and everything going out. If you watch the live shows, I love how I'm throwing it out there. Like I'm just pitching. I'm shill baby shill at the moment. But listen, I gotta stress this, and this is not a threat or anything like that. The way things go, the YouTube channel is the stuff. We're making moves over there, and thank you to everybody who's now following and subscribing. Be the next to subscribe if you're not already, and click that bell icon for notifications, because you're going to want to know as we gear up. We got some big things that I can't even talk about on the way. Like I wish I could.
I know. I wish we could talk about it. I know. I wish we could talk about it and such, but I'm glad that everybody can always hear from us. Yeah.
So my point of the matter is this: make sure there, because you never know. And I want you. I don't want anybody to miss the ride. And of course, hit the thumbs up, because we always need the algorithm help. Make sure you interact with us on the social medias. By the way, thank you to everybody who's tuning in, because I'm sure some of you are comic book fans as well. We've had a lot of interactions on the website. We love hearing from you guys. Just throw comments. If you're watching this as a replay, throw the comments, and we always like to hear them. But that's enough. We're going to get out the door. Next week, we don't have 4 big shows, so we're going to be back doing some editorializing. We're going to be talking about what's going on in the world of professional wrestling as a whole, and it's going to be a lot of fun, because next week we will be back at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday, as we always are, to talk pro wrestling on 607 TWS, The Wrestling Show. But until then, for myself, for my wonderful co-hosting colleague, and I kind of point this way, Miss Sammy. I'm pointing all sorts of. I'm EO skying it right now. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care of yourself. Oh, by the way, if you're in the U.S., have a happy 4th of July. Have a safe 4th of July. So all of the people watching in the U.S., of course, 4th of July is this Saturday. Make sure you have a good time. Go to the barbecues, go to the cookouts, go to the fireworks displays. Have some fun with friends. That means, if your drinks, do not drink and drive. We want you tuning in to 607 TWS every week. And not only that, but spending more time. It ain't worth it. Don't do something stupid. So just take care of yourselves, especially celebrating the holiday. For our international listeners, I know 4th of July don't mean anything to you, so that's fine. Once again, still stay safe yourselves. But until the next time we talk to you, which is next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and most importantly, later, wrestling fans.